Did you know that nearly 80% of small businesses collapse not because the owners lacked good ideas, but because they couldn't manage their money? It's a startling figure. And if you've ever run a small business, you've likely felt the weight of this reality pressing down on your shoulders. Imagine the scene. The rent is due, suppliers are calling, payroll needs to be met by Friday, and despite sales trickling in, the bank account seems emptier than it should be. The owner looks around, exhausted, wondering why their dream feels more like a trap. This is not an isolated story. It's the hidden thread running through countless entrepreneurial journeys. And yet, it doesn't have to be this way. That's why you're here, listening. This audiobook is not about abstract theories or jargon-filled lectures. It's about survival, growth, and clarity. Think of it as a map, one drawn by those who have walked through storms of financial mismanagement and found solid ground on the other side. If you're a small business owner, what you're about to hear could mean the difference between quietly shutting your doors one day or celebrating years of sustainable growth. Before we move further, let me pause and ask you something. As you're listening right now, take a moment to comment where and when you're tuning in. Are you sitting in your office late at night, trying to figure out your next move? Or maybe you're commuting and thinking about payroll. Sharing your story connects you to others on this same path. And while you're here, make sure you subscribe to Audiobook Sanctuary and turn on notifications, because the wisdom you'll receive in each story might be exactly what keeps your business alive tomorrow. Now let's step into the story itself. To truly understand why money management is the Achilles heel of so many businesses, we need to picture a simple yet powerful image: cash flow as the bloodstream of a company. Just as blood carries oxygen and nutrients to keep the body alive, money flowing through a business fuels every decision, every plan, every dream. When that flow is blocked, even briefly, the business suffocates. And just like the human body, the signs of trouble don't always show immediately. Sometimes the owner thinks sales are strong, customers are coming in, and things look fine on the surface. But beneath, the veins of the business are already constricting. Consider the story of a family-owned restaurant in Chicago, a cozy place with glowing reviews and loyal customers. The food was excellent, the staff dedicated. From the outside, it seemed like a thriving establishment. But behind the scenes, the owners were drowning. They hadn't separated personal and business expenses, meaning money flowed out unpredictably. They'd splurged on expensive decor upgrades, believing it would bring in more customers, but didn't account for how long it would take to recoup those costs. They had no emergency reserve, so when the oven broke and had to be replaced, the only option was a high-interest loan. Within a year, despite a steady stream of diners, the restaurant shut its doors. Not for lack of passion, not for lack of customers, but because the financial bloodstream was poisoned. This story is not unusual. In fact, it mirrors thousands of small businesses across America and beyond. Good ideas and hard work are vital, but they are not enough. The reality is simple. No matter how great your product or service is, if you cannot manage your money, your business will eventually fail. That's the unspoken truth many entrepreneurs learn too late. So, what does survival require? It requires humility first, accepting that passion does not replace planning. It requires discipline, choosing to track each expense, even the small ones, and understanding their impact. It requires foresight, building a cushion before a storm, not when you're already in it. But above all, it requires a shift in perspective, from focusing only on how much you make to focusing on how much you keep, how much you wisely spend, and how much you reserve for tomorrow. Let's make it concrete with another example. A young entrepreneur in Texas launched a small tech service business, offering IT support to local companies. He was brilliant at solving computer problems, and word spread quickly. Revenue was solid, contracts steady, but he treated his business like his personal wallet. When revenue came in, he upgraded his car, took vacations, and spent freely. What he didn't notice was the growing delay in client payments. A few late invoices turned into months of shortfall, and by the time he realized the gap, he had no buffer left. The contracts were still there, but the cash wasn't. When he couldn't pay his small team of technicians, they left. Within 2 years, his promising business evaporated. The lesson? Money management is not glamorous, but it is the backbone of survival. Cash in hand today may feel like success, but if it is not controlled, it can become tomorrow's downfall. Now pause for a moment and reflect. What is your relationship with your business finances right now? Do you treat it with the same attention as sales, marketing, or customer service? Or do you push it aside, convincing yourself you'll deal with it later? Because later is when businesses collapse. But here's the hopeful part. You don't need an MBA or a team of accountants to start managing your business finances wisely. You just need clarity and discipline. Think of a farmer tending his crops. He doesn't simply scatter seeds and hope they grow. He studies the soil, monitors the weather, and makes adjustments day by day. That is how you must treat your business finances. Daily attention, small corrections, and constant care. What you've heard so far is the foundation. We've painted the landscape of risk and shown the consequences of neglect. But the real question is, how do you take control? How do you prevent your business from becoming another statistic? The answer begins with mastering the core principles of financial management. These are the unshakable pillars that every small business, whether a local coffee shop or an online consultancy, must build upon. Without them, survival is guesswork. With them, even modest businesses can grow steadily and confidently. So as we close this opening section, let's keep the key thought in focus. Small businesses don't fail because of weak ideas. They fail because their financial bloodstream runs dry. But by learning to protect and guide that flow, you give your business a fighting chance not just to survive, but to thrive. And that leads us directly into the next part of our journey, the core principles of financial management that form the bedrock of stability for every small business. To take control of a small business's survival, you must first understand the foundation, the core principles of financial management. These principles are not complicated formulas buried in textbooks, nor are they reserved for accountants in suits. They are simple, actionable truths that determine whether your business thrives or crumbles. Think of them as the rules of the road. A driver doesn't need to understand the engineering of a car's engine to navigate safely, but he must know to stop at red lights, stay in his lane, and obey speed limits. In the same way, a small business owner doesn't need to become a financial wizard, but must learn and respect the essential rules of money. The first and most critical principle is separation, keeping business and personal finances apart. This sounds obvious, but it is the #1 trap for entrepreneurs, especially in their early years. Picture a bakery owner who deposits customer payments into her personal checking account, pays her utility bills from the same account, and then tries to figure out if the business is profitable. She's left guessing because the lines are blurred. The business becomes an extension of her personal wallet. That guesswork quickly turns into chaos. When tax season arrives, she scrambles to identify which expenses are deductible. When suppliers ask for payment, she doesn't know whether she can afford it. In the end, she has no clear picture of her business's health. By separating accounts, having a dedicated business checking account, a business credit card, and keeping all records clean, the fog begins to clear. It's not about bureaucracy, it's about visibility. You wouldn't try to track your health without distinguishing between a fever and fatigue. Likewise, you cannot manage business finances if every dollar is mixed with personal spending. Once you've separated finances, the next principle is record keeping. Every transaction tells a story. Every dollar coming in and going out is a clue about the health of your company. Too many owners treat receipts and invoices like scraps of paper that don't matter, tossing them in drawers or ignoring them altogether. Yet history reminds us that meticulous records often spell the difference between survival and collapse. Take, for example, Benjamin Franklin. Though not a modern entrepreneur, Franklin was known for his relentless habit of documenting his expenditures, savings, and investments. He believed that small leaks sink great ships. That principle applies to every small business today. If you don't track, you don't see the leaks. And if you don't see the leaks, you cannot patch them until it's too late. Good record keeping doesn't require complicated software. Even a simple spreadsheet, updated daily, can create order out of chaos. For those who are less comfortable with numbers, countless apps make it easier than ever. The real barrier is not tools, it's discipline. The discipline to write things down. The discipline to review. The discipline to ask, where is my money actually going? Alongside record keeping comes budgeting. If separation and records are the eyes of financial management, then budgeting is the steering wheel. It gives direction and control. Without a budget, spending happens by impulse. With a budget, every dollar has a purpose. Imagine a small design agency. They generate $20,000 in revenue in a month. Without a budget, they might spend $5,000 upgrading computers, $3,000 on a flashy office space, and another $2,000 on miscellaneous subscriptions. Payroll eats the rest, leaving nothing behind. But with a budget, they predetermine how much will be allocated to operations, savings, marketing, and unexpected expenses. This foresight transforms chaos into intention. Budgets are not shackles, they are shields. They protect you from overspending in one area while starving another. They also force honesty. Many entrepreneurs convince themselves they'll make it up next month. But the budget holds up a mirror and says, no, you overspent today. Fix it now. Another principle, often overlooked, is understanding profitability versus cash flow. This distinction is one of the most common blind spots for entrepreneurs. A business might appear profitable on paper, but still be starving for cash. For example, a contractor may close a deal worth $50,000 and record it as revenue. But if the client delays payment for 3 months while bills pile up, the contractor faces a cash crisis. The principle here is simple. Profit is theory. Cash is reality. You cannot pay employees with promised income. You cannot pay suppliers with future profits. Always prioritize monitoring actual cash on hand. Now let's talk about foresight. Planning for taxes. Too many small business owners treat taxes as a surprise, something to be dealt with later. But taxes are not a one-time event. They are a constant obligation. Failing to prepare leads to shock, debt, or worse. Smart businesses set aside a percentage of every dollar earned into a tax account. This habit, though it feels painful at first, creates security. It prevents the desperate scramble many owners face each spring. Think of it as paying yourself peace of mind in advance. The final principle is mindset. Shifting from a making money mentality to a managing money mentality. Many entrepreneurs believe that generating more revenue will solve all problems. But history shows otherwise. Countless businesses with strong sales have failed because they couldn't control their finances. It's not how much you make, it's how much you manage. A lemonade stand earning $100 with $20 in profit is more sustainable than a flashy boutique earning $10,000 but spending $12,000. Management, not size, determines survival. Let's revisit our driver analogy. Separation of accounts keeps you in the right lane. Record keeping is your dashboard, showing fuel, speed, and warning signs. Budgeting is your steering wheel, directing you towards safe destinations. Understanding profit versus cash flow is the map, warning you about roadblocks ahead. Tax planning is setting aside money for tolls you know you'll encounter. And the right mindset is your driver's awareness, making sure you don't mistake speed for control. Put these principles together, and suddenly the road looks less dangerous. A story illustrates this beautifully. In the 1990s, a small bookstore in Portland struggled to compete with larger chains. The owner, instead of panicking, doubled down on financial discipline. She meticulously tracked expenses, maintained a separate business account, built a simple budget, and reinvested cautiously. While many small bookstores folded, hers not only survived but grew. Today, that same store remains a beloved local hub, not because it had more capital than others, but because it had more discipline. As you reflect on these principles, ask yourself, which of these do you already practice? Which ones do you neglect? Because each neglected principle is like driving without headlights, hoping you don't hit something in the dark. Now that we've established the core principles, the next challenge is execution. Knowing the rules is not enough. You must act on them. And the first battlefield where these principles are tested is in controlling costs. It's here that many businesses bleed silently, spending on things they don't need, confusing wants with needs, and losing money without realizing it. So as we turn the page, we move from theory into practice. How to control costs wisely without suffocating growth. Every small business owner eventually learns that money slips away far more easily than it comes in. The challenge is not only earning revenue, but making sure it doesn't vanish into 100 little leaks. That is why controlling costs wisely is one of the most critical skills in financial management. Yet here lies a paradox. Cutting costs is not about being cheap. It is about being strategic. When done correctly, it strengthens the business. When done poorly, it weakens it. Imagine a small marketing agency, just 3 employees working out of a modest office. They win a few big clients, and suddenly money is flowing in. Excited, the owner upgrades to a larger office downtown, buys expensive furniture, and subscribes to every software tool that promises efficiency. Within months, the revenue looks good on paper, but the expenses are eating everything. When a client pays late or cancels a contract, the agency scrambles, the rent is due, and the shiny furniture can't be converted back into cash. This is the story of countless businesses. Strong income undermined by careless spending. The first rule of cost control is to distinguish between essential and non-essential expenses. Essentials are those without which your business cannot operate. Rent for your workspace, wages for your staff, utilities, and core supplies. Non-essentials are things that might feel nice, but don't directly impact your ability to deliver to customers. Entrepreneurs often confuse the two because non-essentials often carry the illusion of growth. A cafe owner may believe that buying imported art for the walls will bring in more customers. But in truth, customers came for the coffee, the atmosphere, and the service. The art was a luxury. When times get hard, it becomes dead weight. The second rule is to watch for recurring expenses. One-time purchases, though significant, can often be managed. It's the silent, recurring costs that strangle cash flow. Subscriptions for software, memberships, or services quickly pile up. A study in the United States showed that the average small business wastes thousands of dollars annually on subscriptions they no longer use or need. Canceling unnecessary subscriptions is like sealing leaks in a bucket. It doesn't make the bucket bigger, but it keeps more water inside. A practical example comes from a small fitness studio in California. The owner realized he was paying for 3 different music licensing services, 2 scheduling apps, and several advertising subscriptions, many overlapping in features. By canceling duplicates and negotiating with vendors, he cut monthly costs by nearly $2,000. That $2,000, redirected towards staff training and customer experience, generated new loyalty and kept the studio alive during lean months. Another essential rule is to invest wisely in efficiency. Cost control doesn't mean avoiding all spending. Sometimes spending money reduces waste. For instance, a small bakery that invests in an energy-efficient oven may pay more upfront, but saves thousands on electricity over the years. The key is understanding which expenses create long-term savings or revenue, and which are simply indulgences. Cost control also requires a shift in perspective, learning to question every expense. Ask, does this directly contribute to customer satisfaction, productivity, or revenue? If the answer is unclear, the expense is suspect. Historical leaders provide lessons here too. Andrew Carnegie, one of America's greatest industrialists, was notorious for scrutinizing costs down to the smallest detail. While many criticized his frugality, it was this obsession that gave him the edge to expand steel production at lower prices, beating competitors who spent recklessly. There is also the principle of opportunity cost, the hidden price of saying yes to one expense and therefore saying no to another. If you spend $10,000 on new branding without budgeting for digital advertising, what opportunity have you lost? If you tie up cash in fancy office decor, what growth initiative have you delayed? Every dollar you spend in one place is a dollar unavailable elsewhere. Wise cost control means seeing not only what you gain, but what you sacrifice. To apply this practically, create 2 lists. One for expenses that directly produce or protect revenue, and one for those that do not. Payroll for sales staff, revenue producing, upgraded coffee machine for the office lounge. Nice, but not revenue producing. This clarity allows you to cut without guessing. Let's pause with a story from the Great Recession of 2008. A small family-owned print shop in Ohio saw orders collapse overnight as businesses cut back on marketing. Many shops went under. But this one survived because the owner, years earlier, had already trimmed every unnecessary cost. He didn't rent a flashy office. He leased equipment instead of buying outright. He kept his staff lean and cross-trained. When the crisis hit, his expenses were so slim that even with reduced revenue, he could still operate. By the time the economy recovered, competitors had closed, and his shop was one of the few left standing. His secret wasn't more sales, it was disciplined cost control. But caution is needed. Cost cutting can go too far. If you cut expenses that damage quality, you may save in the short term but lose customers in the long term. A restaurant that switches to cheaper ingredients may lower costs, but also drive away loyal diners. Cost control is about balance, not starvation. It's about eliminating waste, not weakening your value. So how do you strike that balance? One effective method is the 80-20 analysis. Look at your expenses and identify the 20% that produce 80% of results. protect those, then scrutinize the rest. Chances are, many of them can be reduced or eliminated without serious harm. Another strategy is to negotiate with suppliers. Small businesses often assume prices are fixed, but in reality, many vendors are willing to adjust terms, extend payment schedules, or provide discounts for loyalty. Negotiation saves money without cutting quality. Technology also plays a vital role. Digital bookkeeping, cloud-based project management, and automated marketing tools can dramatically reduce labor hours. However, remember the earlier warning: only pay for tools you actually use. Efficiency is valuable. Excess is costly. As you think about your own business, ask yourself, which costs make me anxious each month? Which ones could I live without? If revenue dropped tomorrow by 30%, which expenses would I immediately cut? These questions are not only about saving money, they are about preparing for survival in uncertain times. At the heart of it, controlling costs wisely is about discipline, foresight, and courage. Discipline to track and review every expense. Foresight to invest where it matters most. Courage to cut what no longer serves you, even if it strokes your pride or comfort. So far, we've established the bedrock of good financial management and explored the battlefield of costs. But even if you master these, your business can still collapse if you ignore one thing: the daily flow of cash. Because profit on paper means little if your bank account is empty. And that's where we now turn to the lifeline of every business: cash flow management. Cash flow is the lifeline of every business. You may have heard the saying, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality. That simple phrase explains why thousands of small businesses collapse even while their sales look healthy. The numbers on paper can give the illusion of success, but if money is not flowing in and out at the right pace, the business suffocates. Imagine a body with blood clots. The heart is beating, but circulation is blocked. Without steady circulation, the body fails. In the same way, without consistent cash flow, a business cannot breathe. Consider the story of a small construction company in Florida. On paper, their contracts were worth millions. The owner proudly told friends that his business was thriving. But here's the truth. Most of those contracts required months of work before final payment arrived. Meanwhile, payroll, equipment rental, and supplier bills were due weekly. By the time money came in, he was already behind, constantly borrowing to bridge the gap. One rainy season delayed projects, pushing payments back even further. Within a year, despite impressive contracts, the business went bankrupt. It wasn't a lack of clients or opportunity, it was poor cash flow management. The first step to managing cash flow is daily monitoring. Just as you would not drive a car without glancing at the fuel gauge, you cannot run a business without knowing your cash position every day. Many owners look at their accounts once a month, if that. By then, it's too late to react. Instead, make it a habit. Review inflows and outflows each day. Track not only what's in your bank, but what's coming due. That small discipline prevents big surprises. The second step is creating a cash flow calendar. This is a simple tool that projects your income and expenses week by week. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just a spreadsheet with dates, expected inflows, and scheduled outflows. By laying it out visually, you can see where shortfalls may occur and prepare in advance. For example, if you know payroll and supplier invoices are both due in the same week, you can stagger payments, request extensions, or push a customer for earlier collection. Problems often feel sudden, but in reality, they build slowly. The calendar lets you see them coming. The third step is building an emergency reserve. Life happens. A key customer pays late, equipment breaks down, or an unexpected crisis hits the market. Without a reserve, small businesses are forced into desperation. High-interest loans, maxed-out credit cards, or unpaid bills that destroy trust. An emergency reserve acts as a shock absorber. Experts recommend keeping at least 1 to 3 months of expenses saved, though more is always better. This may feel impossible at first, especially when cash is already tight. But even small contributions build up. Think of it as an insurance policy you pay to yourself. Now, let's address one of the hardest parts of cash flow: collecting payments. Many small businesses struggle because clients or customers delay paying. The work is done, the invoice is sent, but the money doesn't arrive. This delay turns into a chain reaction. You cannot pay your staff, your suppliers get frustrated, and your stress multiplies. The solution is to set clear payment terms from the beginning and enforce them. Require deposits for large projects, shorten payment windows, and don't be afraid to follow up consistently. Professionalism in this area is not optional. It is survival. Let's pause for a story. A small graphic design firm in New York nearly collapsed because of late payments. Clients loved their work, but took 60 to 90 days to settle invoices. The owner realized she needed to change her approach. She began requiring 50% upfront for all projects and added late fees to contracts. At first, she worried this would scare clients away, but in reality, most respected her professionalism, and those who resisted were often the ones likely to delay anyway. Within 6 months, her cash flow stabilized and her stress dropped dramatically. Another overlooked tactic is negotiating payment terms with suppliers. Many small businesses assume they must accept whatever terms are offered, but suppliers want to keep customers too. Asking for 45-day terms instead of 30 or negotiating staged payments can give you breathing room. Even a few extra days of float can mean the difference between meeting payroll and scrambling for loans. Cash flow is also about timing. Sometimes businesses fail not because expenses are too high, but because income arrives too late. Aligning payment schedules, staggering expenses, and carefully timing investments ensure the flow continues. Think of it as a river. You want it steady and smooth, not dry one month and flooding the next. Technology can help here. Many modern accounting tools allow you to track receivables, send automatic reminders, and forecast shortfalls. But remember, tools don't solve problems without habits. Checking software once a month is no better than ignoring it entirely. The real key is discipline. Daily attention, weekly reviews, monthly projections. Let's step back and imagine cash flow as the pulse of your business. You don't check your pulse once a year. You pay attention regularly, especially when under stress. A steady pulse means life continues. An irregular pulse signals danger. That's the mindset every owner needs to adopt. History again offers lessons. During the Great Depression, many small farms collapsed, not because the soil was poor, but because farmers extended too much credit to buyers. They delivered produce but waited months for payment. Those who insisted on stricter payment terms or diversified customers often survived, while those who ignored cash flow perished. The principle remains timeless. You cannot run a business on promises, so ask yourself, do you know your exact cash position today? Could you cover payroll if your biggest client delayed payment this month? Do you have a reserve to withstand a sudden downturn? These are not theoretical questions. They are survival checkpoints. As we close this section, the key message is clear. Profit might make you proud, but only cash keeps you alive. Without daily attention to cash flow, you are walking blindfolded toward a cliff. With discipline, foresight, and reserves, you create a cushion that allows you to focus on growth instead of survival. And that leads us naturally to our next subject. Because when cash runs short, many small businesses turn to borrowing. Debt can be a tool or a trap. The difference lies in how wisely it is used. So in the next section, we'll explore the principles of smart debt and capital management, how to borrow without drowning, and how to use capital to build instead of destroy. Debt is one of the most misunderstood forces in business. To some owners, it feels like a lifeline, quick cash to solve an urgent problem. To others, it feels like a heavy chain that drags them down with interest and obligation. The truth lies somewhere in between. Debt is neither friend nor enemy on its own. It is a tool. In the hands of a disciplined business owner, it can build bridges to growth. In the hands of the careless, it can dig graves. Let's begin with a story. A small retail shop in Ohio had steady sales, but wanted to expand to a second location. The owner took out a large loan, confident that growth would pay for itself. But she hadn't studied her numbers carefully. Rent doubled, payroll increased, and marketing costs skyrocketed. Sales at the new location grew slower than expected, and soon she was borrowing more just to cover operating expenses. Within 3 years, both locations closed. Not because the original shop was unprofitable, but because the debt burden crushed the business. Contrast that with another story. A small manufacturing business in Michigan needed a new piece of equipment to handle larger orders. Instead of rushing into debt, the owner calculated exactly how much new revenue the equipment would generate, negotiated favorable loan terms, and made sure payments were less than half of the expected monthly gain. Within a year, the debt was paid down ahead of schedule, and the business doubled its production capacity. Same tool, debt, two opposite outcomes. So how do you ensure debt becomes a lever rather than a trap? The first principle is borrow with purpose, not desperation. Borrowing to cover payroll, rent, or everyday bills is a warning sign. It's like taking out a loan to buy groceries, necessary for survival but unsustainable. Borrowing should be for assets that generate more revenue or reduce costs, like new equipment, marketing campaigns with proven returns, or expansion into markets already showing demand. The second principle is understand the true cost of debt. Too many owners look only at the loan amount, ignoring interest rates, fees, and repayment schedules. A $50,000 loan at 10% interest is very different from a $50,000 loan at 25%. And hidden fees, prepayment penalties, or variable interest rates can turn what looked manageable into a nightmare. Always calculate the total repayment cost, not just the monthly installment. The third principle is negotiate terms. Many small business owners assume that loan terms are fixed, but lenders often have room to adjust. You can negotiate lower interest rates, longer repayment periods, or more flexible schedules. Sometimes providing collateral or demonstrating a strong business plan can significantly improve terms. Remember, lenders want your business. Negotiating doesn't show weakness. It shows professionalism. The fourth principle is avoid over-leveraging. Just because you qualify for a loan doesn't mean you should take it. In fact, the more you borrow, the more vulnerable you become to downturns. A business with no debt can survive a slow season by tightening belts. A business with heavy debt may collapse when payments come due. Always ask, if my revenue dropped 30% tomorrow, could I still make these payments? If the answer is no, the debt is too risky. Another essential concept is opportunity cost of capital. Even if you don't borrow, how you use your existing capital matters. Some owners hoard cash, afraid to spend. Others spend recklessly, believing every investment will pay off. The wise path is balance. Invest in areas with clear, measurable returns, but always maintain a safety buffer. Too much caution stunts growth. Too much risk invites collapse. History offers lessons here as well. Consider Henry Ford. In the early 1900s, while many automakers borrowed heavily to scale, Ford avoided excessive debt and instead reinvested profits. This discipline allowed him to weather downturns and maintain control of his company. While not every small business can avoid debt entirely, the principle remains. Debt should support growth, not dictate survival. Now, let's explore practical strategies for managing capital. First, build relationships with lenders before you need them. Too many owners approach banks only when desperate, which weakens their bargaining position. By building trust with lenders early, sharing updates, maintaining clean financial records, you increase your chances of favorable terms later. Second, diversify funding sources. Don't rely on a single bank or credit line. Explore local credit unions, online lenders, or even community development funds. Each option comes with pros and cons, but diversification prevents overdependence on one source. Third, use debt in alignment with cash flow. For example, if you borrow to buy equipment, structure repayments to match the revenue that equipment generates. If seasonal fluctuations affect your business, negotiate seasonal payment terms. Aligning debt with cash inflows reduces strain. Finally, remember that equity is also capital. Sometimes the better option is not borrowing, but reinvesting profits, or even bringing in a partner who provides capital in exchange for a share of the business. While giving up equity has long-term implications, it may be safer than drowning in high-interest loans. Think of debt like fire. In a controlled fireplace, it warms the house and makes life comfortable, but left unchecked, it can burn everything to the ground. The same is true for capital. Your job as a small business owner is to control the flame, not let it control you. As you reflect, ask yourself, do you know the true cost of your debt right now? Are your loans fueling growth or simply covering holes? If revenue slowed, would you still survive? These are not easy questions, but they are essential for building resilience. We've now explored the foundations of financial management, controlling costs, managing cash flow, and the smart use of debt. But survival is not the end goal. Every small business dreams of growth, of serving more customers, hiring more staff, expanding its reach. The question is, how do you grow without risking everything you've built? That leads us to our final subject, reinvestment. The art of balancing ambition with safety, expansion with stability. Every small business owner dreams of growth. The idea of serving more customers, opening new locations, or expanding into fresh markets is exciting. Growth feels like the proof that your hard work is paying off. Yet growth can be dangerous if it comes at the cost of stability. Too many businesses collapse not during their first year of survival, but after they've tried to expand too quickly. The key lies in reinvestment, how you choose to direct the profits your business generates. Done wisely, reinvestment strengthens the foundation and fuels steady expansion. Done recklessly, it leaves you vulnerable, exposed, and often exhausted. Let's start with the principle itself. Reinvestment is about balance. Imagine a farmer with a successful harvest. He can eat everything today, but then he'll have nothing next season. He can save everything, but then he'll starve now. Or he can keep enough to live, set aside some for emergencies, and plant the rest for future growth. That is the essence of reinvestment. You cannot consume all profits, nor can you lock them all away. You must divide them wisely between safety and expansion. A good example comes from a small coffee roastery in Oregon. In their early years, profits were modest. Instead of taking large payouts, the owners reinvested steadily. First into better roasting equipment, which improved product quality. Then into a simple but effective website, which expanded their customer base. Finally, they invested in staff training, which increased efficiency and morale. Each reinvestment was deliberate, tied to a measurable benefit. Over time, the business grew into a regional brand, not because they chased rapid expansion, but because they layered growth on top of stability. So how does a small business owner decide where to reinvest? The first rule is to prioritize systems and people. Equipment breaks, offices change, but well-trained employees and efficient systems generate returns for years. Investing in accounting software, automation tools, or customer management systems may not feel glamorous, but they reduce errors, save time, and improve decision-making. Similarly, training staff and rewarding loyalty strengthens your ability to deliver value consistently. A motivated team is often the greatest return on investment a business can make. The second rule is to reinvest in marketing and customer experience. Too often, small businesses see marketing as optional, but even the best product or service needs visibility. Smart reinvestment means building brand presence, strengthening customer relationships, and ensuring repeat business. For example, a local gym in Texas reinvested a portion of its profits into creating a member app that offered scheduling, progress tracking, and rewards. The investment paid off. Retention rates increased, referrals grew, and the gym's revenue doubled within 2 years. The third rule is to maintain a safety net. Growth should never leave you unprotected. For every dollar reinvested into expansion, another portion should be reserved as savings. This balance ensures that if expansion doesn't yield immediate results, or if an unexpected crisis hits, you can still cover core expenses. Think of it like building an extra wall around your castle even as you add new towers. The stronger the walls, the safer the expansion. History provides a clear lesson. Consider the story of Walmart. In its early days, Sam Walton reinvested heavily into opening new stores, but he always balanced growth with financial discipline. He avoided reckless borrowing, kept expenses lean, and reinvested profits methodically. That careful strategy allowed Walmart to scale from a single store to a global empire. For small businesses, the scale is different, but the principle is the same. Reinvest step by step, not all at once. A common trap is expanding too quickly. A restaurant owner who reinvests all profits into opening a second location without securing strong cash reserves is gambling. If the second location struggles, both may collapse. Wise reinvestment asks, if this expansion fails, will my original business survive? If the answer is no, it's too risky. Reinvestment is also about choosing timing wisely. The best time to reinvest is not during a cash crunch or when debt is high. It is when the business is stable, when reserves are healthy, and when there is evidence of demand. Expansion should never be based on ego or impulse. It should be based on numbers, trends, and customer needs. Another perspective is to think in terms of percentages, not absolutes. For instance, a business might decide to reinvest 40% of profits, save 30%, and take 30% as owner compensation. This ensures balance. The exact percentages will vary, but the principle remains. Don't let reinvestment consume everything, and don't let safety hoarding prevent growth. Let's ground this with a story of resilience. A small landscaping company in Arizona began with just 2 trucks and a few employees. In the early years, the owner reinvested profits into better tools and reliable vehicles. Later, he invested in software to manage schedules and invoices. Then, as revenue grew, he reinvested in marketing campaigns targeting commercial clients. Each step was measured and calculated. Today, the company serves dozens of businesses across the state. Growth didn't happen overnight. It was the result of steady reinvestment balanced with reserves. As you reflect on reinvestment, consider these questions. Are you rewarding your team in ways that strengthen loyalty? Are you putting enough into systems that save time and prevent mistakes? Are you building visibility through marketing that ensures future sales? And most importantly, are you protecting yourself with savings even as you grow? This brings us to the closing message of this audiobook. Because whether we're talking about cost control, cash flow, debt, or reinvestment, the underlying truth is simple. Small businesses don't need massive capital to survive and thrive. They need wise financial management, daily discipline, and a mindset of balance. We began this journey with a sobering truth. Nearly 80% of small businesses collapse because of poor financial management. Not because of weak ideas, not because of lack of passion, but because money slipped through their fingers like sand. Yet we've also seen that survival and success are possible. Not through luck, but through clarity, discipline, and smart choices. The central message is this: you don't need a mountain of capital to succeed. You need to make every dollar work harder for you. Success belongs not to the business with the biggest budget, but to the one with the strongest financial habits. Think back to the stories we've explored. The restaurant that failed because it ignored cash flow. The agency buried by unnecessary expenses. The contractor undone by delayed payments. The retailer destroyed by reckless borrowing. And the coffee roastery that grew step by step through reinvestment. These stories remind us that the difference between collapse and success lies not in vision, but in management. So, what should you take away? Start small. Begin by separating your business and personal finances. Keep clean records. Build a budget that gives every dollar a purpose. Review your expenses ruthlessly, cutting what doesn't serve growth or stability. Watch your cash flow daily. Never let promises on paper blind you to the reality in your account. Approach debt cautiously, borrowing only when it builds future revenue. And when profits come, reinvest them wisely into systems, people, marketing, and savings, always balancing ambition with safety. Remember this truth: money is not just numbers in a ledger. It is the energy that fuels your business. Managed well, it becomes a powerful current that carries you forward. Managed poorly, it becomes a flood that washes everything away. The image to hold in your mind is that of a ship at sea. You cannot control the waves of the market, the storms of competition, or the winds of changing demand. But you can control your rudder. You can control your sails. Financial management is that control. It is the steering mechanism that keeps your ship pointed toward your destination. So, wherever you are right now, whether your business is in its infancy or already established, make a decision. Decide to treat your finances not as an afterthought, but as your foundation. Decide to master the habits that protect your cash, control your costs, and strengthen your resilience. Decide to reinvest steadily, not recklessly. Because in the end, small businesses don't fail for lack of heart. They fail for lack of stewardship. And if you can master that stewardship, your business can weather storms, seize opportunities, and grow stronger year after year. The path isn't glamorous. It requires discipline, patience, and humility. But it is the path that leads not only to survival, but to freedom. Freedom to serve your customers, support your family, and build something that lasts. So take these lessons, apply them step by step, and remember, you don't need vast capital to succeed. You only need to be wise with what you already have. Keep your financial rudder steady, and your ship will reach the shores you dream of.